you doing, buddy?
I'm good.
That's good to know.
Can I get through this?
You're going to, so I'm going to say yes. This way it seems like it's my idea.
You know, if you want to enter the show,
I don't.
You always can.
I want to interrupt you. It's the same reason why you like interrupting me with sound effects.
I'm Joe Patrice from Above the Law. I'm joined by my colleague, Kathryn Rubino, and we're here with a bit of a special episode.
Special episode.
I mean, it doesn't seem all that special to your side, but I mean, I guess we can discuss why it's special.
Yeah.
Which is the subject of small...
See, you were going to interrupt me.
Perish the thought. So the reason this is a little bit special is we're kind of recording this extra early, so we're going to be less... time sensitive about the actual news of the week. The reason we're doing that is because those of you who are
plugged in to the exciting world of legal technology.
Knowledge. Yeah. So, for those of you who know that, you know that
that tickled me. I enjoyed that.
For those of you who are aware of that universe,
or perhaps listen to your other podcast, the Roundtable.
Yeah, that's true. Then you know that the ILTACON conference is taking place this week, and therefore, that's a job that we've got to do and go down and cover that. And that means we don't really have time to be recording a podcast.
So what's ILTA like as a journalist when you go down to cover it? I've only been to one, and to be honest, what I remember is the location.
Right.
Because it was at Disney.
It was.
My favorite place on earth, as it should be everyone's, because it's literally the happiest place on earth.
Fair enough. So this year we're in National Harbor, which is outside.
Not the happiest place on earth.
It's not. It's like this weird conference facsimile village outside of Washington,
D.C. It's like a facsimile of a town.
Yeah. I think that's a fair way of describing it. Anyway, we're there having this conference. It is a large conference, brings together a lot of international and the global law firms and legal departments coming together, especially aimed towards the legal technologists. That's usually IT people, but also, a lot of operations folks and so on. They come together to have a series of sessions that are interesting about what's going on in legal technology, but also, as one does with these sorts of conferences, there's an exhibit hall where a lot of the mover and shaker vendors come to peddle their wares.
So you're going to get a lot of branded highlighters.
And it's always possible that there's some swag. It's always a great
What's the best piece of conference swag that you've got throughout the years? Because you've been covering legal tech conferences for a number of years for ATL.
As far as there's a few different things. So I don't use it very often, but the objectively best thing I got was an Apple Watch.
Oh, yeah, that would qualify as the nicest
I did get
bit
an
of
Apple
swag.
Watch. Yeah, but I also, I go to these things. I use a lot of the. I think I'm actually currently drinking from something I got at ILTA. Yeah, no, this particular thermos. Yeah, I got from ILTA. Yeah, so useful stuff like that. Anyway. But you get to hear a lot about what's going on in the industry, what they're hearing from clients. Clients talk to us about what they're hearing from vendors. It's a good opportunity to take the temperature. A lot of the vendors time their releases surrounding the conference.
So there'll be news coming out of the conference.
You hear about new features. We just heard, in advance of the conference, NetDocuments just told us about a new automation feature that they have, which is kind of cool. I got to see a demo of that. That was fun. But yeah, that's a lot of what this show is. But yeah, that's what it's like to cover it.
That sounds like I imagine there might be some parties as well to attend.
There are a few parties, which, obviously are very serious business.
Very, very serious business.
I take as...
No alcohol involved.
I take them as seriously as you would expect I would.
Leaves a lot of room for interpretation.
Yeah.
Or not much room at all.
Yeah. So we don't have a particularly long show today, but we wanted to get something out there that talks about a couple of stories that are not so much time sensitive, but we still thought were very interesting from this last week. And so
Speaking of legal technology.
Yes. So first of which, we'll talk a little bit about legal technology, though we are going to do that after we take a break.
Hear from
because
our
that's
sponsors.
what we do. Yeah, that's what we do when we come to the conclusion of, well, the sound effects aren't working.
We can pretend.
We could pretend.
Bring.
Well,
Have you heard about the whole thing about how like kids nowadays don't use their hand to simulate a telephone the same way that like Gen X used to? You know how like for Gen X you used to like use like your pointer finger and your pinky to be like, that's the telephone. Now they just hold it because it's like a phone is a brick in their minds.
That's actually fascinating.
Yeah.
And that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, if you've stopped thinking about telephones in general, it might be because you need a service for someone to take care of the...
Oh, like a virtual receptionist?
That's what I was going with.
All right, so let's hear from our friends from Posh.
As a lawyer, ever wish you could be in two places at once? You could take a call when you're in court, capture a lead during a meeting. That's where Posh comes in. We're live virtual receptionists who answer and transfer your calls so you never miss an opportunity. And the Posh app lets you control when your receptionist steps in. So if you can't answer, Posh can. And if you've got it, Posh is just a tap away. With Posh, you can save as much as 40% off your current service provider's rates. Start your free trial today at posh.com.
Today's legal news is rarely as straightforward as the headlines that accompany them. On Lawyer to Lawyer, we provide the legal perspective you need to better understand the current events that shape our society. Join me, Craig Williams, and a wide variety of industry experts as we break down the top stories. Follow Lawyer to Lawyer on the Legal Talk Network or wherever you subscribe to podcasts.
All right. So, yeah, we have a bit of a legal tech story out of the gate. I had an opportunity this last week, actually. It was really great. It's a story that I had actually covered back at Legal Week, the more spring show that in the legal tech world. But there I spoke on it about some of the stuff that they were doing and what came up, because it was obviously on everyone's mind. That show was only a week or so into the Russian invasion of Ukraine. And we talked about how Ukraine has a somewhat of a thriving IT market. Mm-hmm. And for that reason, there are a lot of legal tech connections there, including AXDRAFT, which is part of the Onit extended family, which is based in Ukraine. And They told me there, about the hard stuff about evacuations and making sure every employee was fine and all, which was...
What did it all entail?
Well, so that's actually what I wanted to get to. So that was a conversation I had back in March. And, as time has gone on, we've had a lot of other things happening, which unfortunately, force you to budget your time. Mm-hmm. You don't want to lose track of the important issues. And this one, I got an opportunity this week to follow up, to talk a little bit more. And that gave me an opportunity to talk to Yuri Zaremba, who's the co-founder and managing director of AXDRAFT, who's currently in leave. And I got to talk to him about how all this went down. And yeah, pretty harrowing.
I can imagine.
Yeah, he had a plan. Mm-hmm. One of the things he told me was that they had thought through that this could possibly happen. We hear these reports that apparently many people in Ukraine did not think this was really going to happen, that this was just posturing. AXDRAFT, though, took it very seriously and had a plan to evacuate everybody and to...
So those project management skills are coming in handy when you also need to evacuate your country.
Yeah. So, so they were based in Kyiv. They had a plan when things started going. They executed the plan, had buses to move everybody out of Kyiv to Lviv, which is on the westernmost side of the country, which has not been anywhere near. There's been some rocket attacks, but not near any of the where Russian troops were. And they had pre-booked hotels and office space so that they would be able to keep working, because as a company that services international clients, they didn't want to have interruption. And they managed to they also set up some folks in Frankfurt, Germany, for some of the client-facing stuff. And they managed to keep the company going, got out there, and now they have a permanent base there. And they had the first quarter of the year was obviously rough to the extent that not that they were disrupted, but lots of people they sell to were and stuff.
Sure.
So the first quarter was not great, but the second quarter was their best quarter ever, which is astounding, the resilience of
in
that.
the middle of a literal war.
Yeah. And ultimately, the Ukrainian forces have pushed the Russians out of the Kyiv area, and so some of the folks have gone back there. So they now have a permanent base in Lviv, and they also have some folks back at the old place.
Lviv, or
I mean, that's certainly where the bulk of their employees are now, as I heard. But some folks went back to Kyiv because Kyiv is now, Yuri was telling me, about 75% open is what he would estimate. That restaurants and places are
so things are
stores
largely back to normal. Or
that's how he
from
said.
His perspective,
that they're doing what they can there. So things are largely back to normal there. Obviously, there were some issues with how one's day-to-day routine was disrupted. Yuri told me that when they first were given the okay to go back, he actually told folks maybe wait a while.
Sure.
Because there were like parks where you would walk your dog that were closed off from landmine concerns and stuff like that. So. Yeah. But he says it's getting back, and that's one of the things, and one of the messages he had to his team when they evacuated, they kept working. Was he said, like, everybody's got to do your part, and our part here is to keep generating revenue and keep paying our taxes so that we can,
that is in fact how wars are funded, right?
Yeah,
taxes.
And so he said that. Our mission is to keep making money for the country, and that's what they've been doing. And it's still an ongoing crisis. He was very clear that he wanted people to remember that, but that, he's hopeful now more hopeful now than he had been, that they aren't going to have to go backward and do more evacuations and stuff. But really, that was a story we had that. Yeah, it was very interesting.
It's
good
something
to
you don't
hear.
always think about when you're saying, "Oh, I'm in legal tech."
Yeah,
and also,
certainly not what you bargained for.
Would you think you're signing up for?
Yeah.
But I guess that's sort of the horror of war, right? Is that it affects everyone.
Yeah, no, definitely. Well,
it's good to see that at least the folks at AXDRAFT are doing well.
Yeah. No, very good. And great work on their part. Thankfully, everybody's okay. And your clients are expecting you to know a lot of things about a lot of things, even topics like domain names.
Domains were definitely not covered in my law school classes.
Worse yet, your client might want a domain name to protect their brand or support a product launch that's already taken.
Fortunately, GoDaddy's domain broker service can help. Expert brokers will help you securely and confidentially get that perfect domain.
To learn more, visit godaddy.com/DBS. Okay, so we're back.
Yeah, also kind of on this human interest tact that this episode's fallen under. There was a story in CNN about...
I've heard of them.
Yeah, they're kind of a big deal.
Yeah, I've heard of that outlet. Yeah.
But they had a story about Fawza Amini, an Afghanistan judge. She headed the Elimination of Violence Against Women court, and so presided over all sorts of cases where women were victimized either by partners or by, whatever kinds of crimes. And that all that kind of changed last year when the Taliban took over Kabul. One of the things that they did once they took over the city was to shut down the court. They fired all of the women, and according to Amini, they also froze their bank accounts. This is the moment when she says she began to plot her escape from Afghanistan. She also has 4 children, daughters, and very concerned that her entire family would become targets because she had taken on this sort of leadership role, and not only as a woman judge, but also, on that particular court. And she was able to flee the country. And this is what I also thought was very interesting, is that it was actually her legal connections that helped get her out of the country. A UK solicitor, the Baroness Helena Kennedy, actually had been to Afghanistan organizing the country's efforts to create a bar association, and got a lot of contacts from women in the country as a result. And when the Taliban took over, she started getting calls about, I'm in danger. I'm hiding in my basement. I don't know what to do. Is there anyone out there kind of that can help? And she was able to fundraise a bunch of money, charter planes. Amini talked about getting her family by bus that had to, go a 12-hour bus ride with the headlights off because they were afraid of being seen, to get to a chartered plane where they were then able to leave the country. But she also has friends who are still there that remain unidentified fully because of fear of retribution, obviously. But talk about how that they're still very, very fearful for their lives, that they're treated like prisoners, and that they feel like their entire life has been stolen by the Taliban. The problems didn't end when they were able to flee the country. She talks about, first of all, one of the most sort of poignant / heartbreaking images from the story is she talks about cutting a hole in her dress and sewing her law degree.
Yeah, I mean that's awful. But
she says she wanted to be able to prove her credentials no matter where she wound up. So she's actually currently in the UK. Currently, her focus is on learning English, getting her children are in school, something that girls are not currently allowed to do in Afghanistan. But Helena Kennedy actually talked about how she thought that it would be so easy to get refugee status for all these women that she was getting out of the country because these courageous women taking a stand against the Taliban, all this kinds of stuff. And it's actually proven very difficult. Yeah. There's, international standard. Different countries have different processes, different forms to fill out. And it's kind of been an mess to figure out where all of these folks who were able to get out will wind up and what status they have in the country that they have wound up in. So definitely an ongoing problem and story, but I think that it's something that we don't pay enough attention to, because there's so very many problems, but there's a mess left in Afghanistan, and women like this are the ones very much left holding the bag. And they talk about they had dreams for the country that they felt was on the right track, and it's been pushed backwards. And it's heartbreaking to think about this woman's story and the steps backward that she's taken.
Yeah, so today's episode was very much on the humanitarian crises and a conversation about legal tech, which...
There was a connection there.
There were. There was a tonal shift in the show, I think is fair to say.
This is not our typical show. I normally don't get choked up in the middle of the show. But, bad things... We should feel things when we hear stories about bad things that are going on in the world.
Well, with that, I think we're done with this short kind of special event episode. Thanks for listening. You should be subscribed to the show so you get episodes when they come out. You can give reviews, stars, write things, do all that sort of stuff. You can check out our other shows. I'm on that Legal Tech Weekly, that weekly Legal Tech.
See, you don't know the name of it.
Journalists Roundtable.
You could also subscribe to Thinking Like a Lawyer, which most of the time...
Which you can get episodes when they...
I know, but I was also going to say that most of the time they're not this much of a downer.
Wow, that is correct.
That was what I was just going to say.
That is correct. You can also listen to The Jabot, which is Kathryn's other program. You can listen to the other offerings from the Legal Talk Network. Follow us on social media. I'm at Joseph Treese. She's at Kathryn1, the numeral 1. Read Above the Law, so you can
follow ATL on Twitter stuff. Too. It's at ATL Blog.
That is right. We also have an Instagram, although I can't remember what that is.
I think it's ATL Blog too.
Yeah, okay. Anyway,
Follow the other shows on the Legal Talk Network.
I already said that one.
Well, I wasn't listening to you, Joe.
See, that's the problem. Like,
Is it? Or is it really what makes me the superstar here?
All you have to do is follow the dulcet tones of my voice. Everything will work out fine.
Then I would absolutely fall asleep, right? Like, let's be very clear.
So with that done, I think we're finished, and we'll chat with you again next week. And thank you, as always, to Posh and GoDaddy Domain Broker Service for sponsoring the show.
Thanks.